This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, you guys any...
Happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome to the NFL Big Football Show and more. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and all-around sports guru. We also have our lady of sports, Sonja Pearson, with us this morning. And, of course, we've got a newcomer. Many may not have seen him, James Martin. Both these people, these two underneath us, they went down hard yesterday in the Saturday debate show as me and Jack come from behind basically to win. I had no help from Jack whatsoever during the debate match as he just sat there and let Sonja beat the heck out of him. I had to tag in quick to save us from the defeat. But for all you that didn't see it, go back. It's the first debate tag team sports show ever in the history of the internet. It was a lot of fun, and we had a great time. Got to meet James, who very knowledgeable in a lot of sports. So we brought him on today to see to have him on the Big Football Show with us. Today on the show we will have Keith Engle, TGI Sports Talk host. He does unbelievable college sports update for us. Talk to him a little bit of the Patriots, maybe the Knicks. We'll also have the Philly sports guy. Of course, he'll be talking about Philly sports. I mean, he's even out there, Jack, playing lacrosse, and I don't know what the heck he's doing over there in Philadelphia. But it's all Philly all the time.
He doesn't know how. Pat doesn't know how to keep himself busy.
Yes, that's true. I mean, he's doing everything. And in fact, Keith Engle's in early this morning. He's all excited. I think he watched the debate show, and I know he thinks Sonja and James won that debate, but I know they're going to be overconfident. They're going to be overconfident on Saturday, Jack, and we'll bring them down just like we brought down the House Undivided. So let's bring up Keith. How you doing this morning, Keith?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, Keith.
I saw James, and I thought maybe Jim Jeffcoat got younger and better looking. I don't know what happened.
I grew some hair, too. I mean, you know, it doesn't happen. I don't think he's as big as Jim, though. Jim kind of takes up the whole
screen. Well, lost a couple of pounds at the same time.
Yeah, that could be. So, good morning, Keith. Keith from TGI Sports Talk comes with us every Sunday and Friday. For some reason, he said his email didn't work, but yet he had a show on later. So I'm a little skeptic about that.
They were my email was being a little funky Friday morning. I don't know what happened. So my fault for not checking it sooner.
That's all right. That's all right. We were going. I couldn't get the link out to you, but anyway, we'll be covering some of the things we covered Friday. Good morning to Rick, who is really Rick Sherlock. He's under the name of Cade Sherlock right now. Like Sonja, with so many different names, I think they're hiding from the law. I'm not sure what's going on. So anyway, so Keith, let's start with this. I wanted to talk about Caleb Williams this morning. I wanted to lead off with that because there's a lot of stuff being said that he's saying this and he wants to be part owner. And if he went to MLB, we'd be making $700 million contract. I mean, there's a lot of stuff being said. I don't know what's true and what's not, but I really don't want to cover him. I want to cover what he represents out there today. And to me, he represents a certain kind of athlete. Now, Caleb Williams played for USC, not not a really strong conference. I mean, he was the centerpiece of the offense who threw the ball a lot, and they had no defense at all. So I think I'm not going to say his numbers were padded, but he was on the field a lot because of their defense. But it seems to me, Keith, and maybe you'll agree or disagree with me, these new athletes seem kind of smug, like they're the boss, and like they're going to tell what team should draft him, what team shouldn't draft him, where he wants to go, where he doesn't want to go. And I understand the draft is not fair, but it's been that way forever. And I don't think Caleb Williams is any better than any other quarterback that's come through. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't be. I have a feeling he won't be. But what are your thoughts on Caleb Williams and today's athlete, Keith?
It's definitely a different athlete today as a rule, but it isn't like this is new. Eli Manning did this 20-some years ago. You got to remember, his father did, I guess, if you want, however you want to look at it. He forced a trade from San Diego to the Giants. But Caleb Williams, I mean, I think there's a lot of I think Caleb Williams is probably going to be maybe the most overrated guy in this early part of the draft.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of misrepresentation of Caleb Williams going on right now, though, as well, about his desire to play in Chicago or not. He has said, I have no problem going to Chicago. The press tries to stir stuff up. They've got to make news. The combine isn't as big as it used to be because the big names don't go. So we've got to have news to talk about. And this generates a lot of buzz, right? So it gets people like us talking about it. So I think that the athlete is different. Yes, they have a different attitude. They want to be part owners. I always say this, it's sports in a lot of ways is a microcosm of society in general. And the generation we live in that is coming to age today wants everything right now. Not 5 years from now after I've earned some of it. I want to get it right now. And I don't think it's just athletes. It's obviously in their microscope there. But I think he's probably being misrepresented just a little bit as far as his attitude specifically.
I would agree with that. And James, believe it or not, has covered the whole combine. I mean, he's been watching it with interest. Jack has not watched it at all. That's the difference we have on the show.
It is a waste of time for the most part, a complete waste of time.
In a way, I hate to do this. In a way, I agree with Jack, but it's not a complete waste of time because there are players that can enhance their draft position if they go and they do well. And I'd love to get James' take because, and maybe he's given it and I've missed it and I apologize, but not only don't the good players show up, which I don't blame them, they can only hurt themselves. Why go? But some of the teams don't even show up to the combine. Is that a misrepresentation, or were their teams not there this week?
No, Sean McVay didn't show up. There are a few other coaches that weren't there. I'm pretty sure they may have had some scouts there, but a few of the coaches weren't there. But at the same time, what I heard someone say, this is like a job interview. You don't come to a job interview and tell somebody that you're not going to do certain things, or you say you can do these things. You have a resume, but you won't show me a little piece of that before we start working. So I would say that someone like Jaden Daniels, for instance, he didn't weigh in. Yeah. And he's a little light in the britches. And so I don't understand. And so that might tell some teams that, like, hey, maybe, at least we want to see you weigh in so we can work with you. Maybe you need to add a few more pounds here and we can work with you later on. But yeah, he didn't weigh in. And that just seems to be what's going on. I've never heard this before where you don't do anything. Marvin Harrison Jr., he didn't even speak to the media at all. He didn't say anything. He did a few interviews with teams behind the scenes. Now, that was important, but he did nothing else, at all.
And I still think these guys can probably only hurt themselves. They're not going to hurt their draft position by not showing up. Jaden Daniels is going 2 or 3, right? Michael Penix Jr. needs to show up because he's probably fallen late second, maybe to the 3rd round. If he goes there and does well, then he can improve that stock. But so there's still some use to it. I mean,
Michael Penix did do his stuff. He threw.
Yeah. One thing I do have a problem with, like Marvin Harrison, not only did he show up, what I've read is he won't even provide his medicals, which is a bigger red flag to me than anything else we've talked about. You'll provide your medicals. That tells me there's something maybe amiss.
Well, let me get Sonja in here for a minute with this. Listen. We saw the fastest 40 ever, right? I don't know if that really matters. You got to catch the football if you're a wide receiver. I think that's a little bit more important, And we saw Penix throw the ball long and short, which he did, as Jack says. Go watch the film. You can see that already as he's getting hit or he's running for his life and trying to do. So, what does this actually prove to these? The people that a guy can run really fast, or a guy can throw the ball, or a guy can catch the ball? Again, Jack says go to the tape, and I agree with him there. I mean, somebody going to hit you while you're trying to catch the ball is a lot different than tiptoeing down the sidelines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in between Jack and James on that one, because I watched it actually a lot yesterday, but I did not watch it the previous day, where I missed Nate Wiggins with his record, but I did see Xavier yesterday with his record. I will say that I think his first name was Isaac. I thought he was going to win that running back race where he had the fastest time, like a 4.33 or something like that. But when they started making them rerun, but this is my take on it. We saw Jim Harbaugh there. We saw the Dolphins coach McDaniels there. Coaches are there in the building because it's like being on display. It's like if everybody, and I always say this, if everyone is considered the best of the best in the NFL, then you have to be willing to at least get an advantageous start by putting on display what you have before you're out there with 90 other gentlemen that are trying to make the final cut of the roster. So it's like going car shopping, kind of like how James talked about when you're looking for something. If you go to a lot and you see a whole bunch of Mercedes-Benz and they all are black and they all look the same, the only way you're going to know how your specific Mercedes is if you drive it. Because if they all look the same and you don't know, one may have water damage. You don't know anything until you test out what's under the hood.
Okay.
Yeah, but Sonja, the combines are basically this. It'll help you sell the car. But once the car's on the road, it's not going to perform any better. Like Keith says, draft stock can be improved for a player. But how many cases have we seen a player come out of nowhere because of the combines and really be a true impact NFL player that's far beyond anyone's expectations?
Well, it's just a brief preview.
Made a joke of the combines last week by running a faster time than he did when he came out as a rookie. Okay, so if anything, Brady's stock would have dropped on the combines during that time when he was taken in the 6th round. What did they need? Brady to run quicker so that he'd be a 3rd round draft choice instead of a 6th?
I don't think it's necessarily the order of drafts in that specific, right? But it's just a basic, like, you want to stand out. I don't think it does too much. But if you say you're going in there like projected number 10 and you show up and show out, then you just moved up from number 10.
No, but the only time, I just want to say, Matt, if someone is coming off of an injury, okay, I understand that. They missed half their final season in college, and they want to show the teams at the combine that they're healthy, then it has some merit. But beyond that, I just don't see it.
You know what I would do? I would show up in full pads, and I go through those drills in full pads to show everybody my NFL speed, my football field speed. You know what I mean? That's what I would do. In fact, I challenge anybody else to do it. But I mean, that's never going to happen. Keith, let's stick with college football for a minute.
I'm not doing it, by the way, just to be clear. I'm not.
So in college football, it looks like they're finally going to put communications in the helmet, which we've all been saying, why haven't they done that? In NFL, they do that. But I'm going to tell you, it's really not going to matter, Keith, because I'm telling you what's going to happen. They're all going to be on the field. They'll be looking over at the coach. He'll whisper into his microphone what he wants the play to be. Then they'll be looking at the defensive formation, and that's what they'll base the play off of. Then they'll line up. The defense will call a timeout because they see what formation they're in, and then they will reset their formation because we know the college defense is so intricate, right? I mean, it's like an NFL defense. You won't be able to read it. I mean, does this really help in any way? Why not go back to the old days? They do send in running backs still. They still bring in wide receivers on certain plays. Why not just send the play in and give them 2 plays and go from there? Why do we got to do all this rigmarole? This sure ain't the NFL. They're not going to be calling too many, different plays on the line of scrimmage. That's not going to happen.
Well, the telecommunications helps in the regard that we don't have this archaic system of holding up pictures of giraffes and everything else to call the plays, and which is, just ridiculous. And the NCAA needs to go to this system when every other level of football uses it, including Division II, Division III, high schools. For them not to use it is just ridiculous. And we can avoid some of these ridiculous. I'm sorry, somebody's going to try to find a way to steal the signs anyway. Not just Michigan, not just whomever. Everybody's trying to get an edge on every level of football as well. And these, to me, overblown controversies will go away somewhat. But we'll find something new. We'll find something new. Because my point is always, everybody's doing something to get an edge. And if somebody wants to get some dirt on you, whether it's in the NCAA or the NFL or wherever you want to talk about, they'll find it. If they want to find it, they'll find it. So, will it help? Yes.
James, whatever happened to, I don't care what defense you put up there. I'm running my play. You try to stop me. What happened in Vince Lombardi days? I'm running the power sweep. See if you can stop me. You probably can't because I'm not good at execution, and you're not that good at stopping me. What do you think, James?
Well, I think rules have changed the game. So, you got to figure you can't do certain things. Everything's an aerial attack now. Everything is in a shotgun formation. So, and these kids know a lot more. That's why they're more pro ready when they get into the NFL. So, in regards to going back to the technology, I think that just improved the game even more so. But it's just going to be younger. I don't think you'll ever see try to stop me type of offenses or defenses anymore. It's just different. Well, I think
I don't know about that, James. Michigan pretty much did that in the bowl game. They pretty much said, "I'm running it right down your throat. You try to stop me," and they couldn't. Washington couldn't do it.
Well, they probably won't be doing it next season.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If it works, don't use it again. That probably is. So in college basketball, Keith, we'll touch on this. I was going through what teams are going to get March Madness, and you would think these would be the best of the best teams going to play in March Madness. And pretty much I see where there's teams that don't even have winning records that are barely at 500 that are getting into March Madness. And I'll give you some real quick. Let's see. Florida International Airport is one of 3 teams with an 11-18 record.
Not Airport.
Lehigh, they have one of 2 teams that are like at 3-16, or that's Holy Cross. Sorry. You have 19 teams with losing records, 6 more teams with 500 records. Why are these teams allowed to get in here? We don't have to have 64 teams in the March Madness, do we?
Well, I think it's 68 when you count the first 4. And they want to think about increasing it, by the way, which is ridiculous. If you got an argument about it not being one of the top 68 teams, then you got a problem. You shouldn't and getting there anyway. Some of those teams you talked about, Mac, there's no way they're getting in unless they win their conference tournament. That's the only situation where I'll say it's okay that somebody gets in with a losing record. What I have a problem with is teams from the Big 12. The Big 12 is the most overrated conference in the country. There's some good teams, don't get me wrong. Houston's a great team. Kansas is a great team. But they overrate the conference by playing a very poor out-of-conference schedule, improving their own net metric, and then playing each other, and they've got all these quad 1 wins because they played each other, and they all played bad conference schedules. And teams like, there's somebody in the Big 12 who's 5-10. There's other teams in other conferences. This is their conference record, not their overall record. So their overall record looks good, but in conference, if you can't finish 500 in your conference, I don't think he ought to be considered and leave some better teams from the mid-majors out. I think that's ridiculous, for sure.
I agree with you, and I'm telling you, Keith, I appreciate this piece you do, this segment with college football, not just because of your knowledge, but because Jack sits there and has nothing to say, and it's the only time I get a break on the show. Just to let you know that. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Patriots. Mac Jones, people that are saying is worth about a fifth-round pick. That he's going to be moved. They're going to probably draft a quarterback to upgrade the position. We all know what happened with Mac Jones. It maybe wasn't his fault, what happened as far as, the kind of coaches that were over him. But, it is what it is. I imagine the Patriots would be drafting a quarterback at their, the third spot I think they're in, Keith.
Yeah, it looks like that now. I have talked about before that I would have a different plan, but that plan's not coming to fruition. Mac Jones, they haven't said it out loud, but his decision's been made internally to move him out because there was still some talk about trying to rehabilitate him and bring in a veteran quarterback. But now it looks like they'll draft and they'll get either Derek May or Jaden Daniels, whoever the team formerly known as the Redskins don't draft, and then bring in a veteran quarterback to ease that guy into the position a little bit, not throw him to the dogs like they did Mac Jones. But still, Mac Jones played okay as a rookie, by the way. So it wasn't a problem with playing him early. It's the fact that the team messed him up in year 2 and 3. But the Patriots, to me, I would go a different direction because I think there's some options out there, like a Justin Fields, who I like a lot, and be able to get Marvin Harrison with the third pick, but not going to happen. It looks like they're going quarterback all the way.
They would have to then pay Justin Fields next year top quarterback franchise money. He's just not worth it. Wouldn't they be a lot better off unless they like Drake May or Jaden Daniels an awful lot? And it would be a mistake on Jaden Daniels to take him ahead of Drake May, but that's another argument. But wouldn't they be better off just maybe drafting Marvin Harrison at number 3 and then taking Michael Penix in the second round, have that combo rather than just, go for the quarterback, Jaden Daniels, number 3 overall?
Oh,
That's a big gamble. I mean,
it sure is.
I'm not a huge fan of Michael Penix making that big a difference on the next level.
He competes with Mac Jones, and one of them wins the position.
Yeah.
Let's see whether they can rehabilitate Mac Jones. If not, Michael Penix could be the
guy. I mean, I love Marvin Harrison. I would love to see them take that pick, but that's a gamble that you'll even get Penix. There are some guys that you can get later on. The quarterback from Tulane, Michael, his name is escaping right now. Pat Prax, I think. There's some guys that you can get later on in the draft if you want to go that direction and keep Mac Jones or bring a veteran in and move Mac Jones out. To me, Harrison
is going to be available in the second round. No one's going to take him in the first round. And if they do, a guy like Bo Nix will be available then in the second round.
I see Bo Nix as a Mac Jones carbon copy myself, but we've already been down that road. You sold me on Mac Jones and I bought in, and look what you did to me.
You weren't talking that way after 1 year. Now you're talking.
No, draft night I said, what a big mistake, and you talked me into liking the guy, and now look what happened to me.
Yeah, I know.
What's funny is if we still had the old regime, we'd probably be trading this pick and going backwards in the draft would be my guess to draft a bunch of
Bill Belichick has gone up and drafted quarterback in early rounds during his tenure. I think Garoppolo was a second round pick, and I think depending on what the quarterback is, he might have done that. I don't know, but that's a totally different story. Bill Belichick. We'll get into that.
Remember he was making those picks when he had Tom Brady as his quarterback. Now you don't have a quarterback, so it's a little bit different situation. And you better make the right pick. You better make the right pick because the franchise got set back 5 years by the drafts from the last 5 years. And if you make the wrong pick here, you're going to be set back another 5 years. So
I don't know. I don't know if one pick does that. I think it's a lot to do with developing.
It does when you don't have a quarterback.
that's probably true. So I was reading an article on the Yankees, and they called it. Let me see if I get it right. Let's see, a Band-Aid gang, a Band-Aid needing game. They're getting injured players, especially pitchers, and bringing them over. They're already hurt. I just saw Rondon got touched for 4 home runs in a spring training game. This has been the biggest problem with the Yankees, I think, over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, amongst many others, where they like to get players that have been injured and the teams are willing to get rid of them. Let me get somebody else here. And the Yankees, for some reason, like injured players, especially pitchers, Keith.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to weigh in the other night when Jack was talking about the Yankees and how the rotation was pretty much set. I'm not happy with 3/5 of that rotation. Is a question mark. Rondon certainly has got a lot to prove. Just the fact that he shaved his mustache and lost some weight is not going to make me think he's going to pitch any better in New York. I like Clark Schmidt, but he's a 4th and 5th starter. Nestor, who I love, we don't know that he can make it through a whole year. Yeah. Cole's going to have to really carry the burden here. It's going to be, Cole and maybe Stroman. I'm not even sold on Stroman. Yes, They keep bringing in guys that are question marks, either attitude-wise or health-wise. And even if they're healthy, they come in here and get hurt, for crying out loud. Yes. Don't like the Verdugo move. They could have had Bellinger. When you talk about the monies involved, I would have rather had Bellinger than Verdugo. Or the kid that the Giants got from Korea in Lee, who was a really nice signing.
So you would have signed Bellinger to a long-term deal for big money, and you would have taken that type of a risk on Bellinger.
No, the Cubs just signed him for $80 million for 3 years.
And he's opting out after 1 year, $30 million. He could opt out at the end of the first year, $30 million the second year. He can opt out at the end of the second year. You hate the opt-outs. Yet you would have given it to Bellinger.
I'm okay in this situation. I would be okay with an opt-out. When you get a 10-year contract, I'm not okay with opt-outs. But when you're getting a 2 or 3 year make-good contract, basically, then I'd be okay with that. And plus, they would have got Lee at a different price. And I don't have to play Judge. And I know Mac doesn't think it's a big deal. But Judge playing center field the majority of the time is not a good situation.
I love it. They played Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio in center field. Why is Judge anymore?
6'11" or what the hell ever he is, 6'7".
There goes Keith. I always can get him to swear on my show. That's one thing I'm proud of.
Swear? Did I swear?
Yes. No, well, maybe. Not as bad as you have before. Anyway, Keith. Keith going over to the Stream of Consciousness. Go over and check out his show. He one of his best shows, audience driven. Keith, thanks for stopping in. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
All right, guys. Have a great Sunday.
See ya.
All right. So now I'm back with Jack, since we're not going to talk college for a while. At least I don't think we are. So let's talk about the
Mac, I used to talk college when they were there for 4 years. When players can leave after 1 year, I can talk college, but I don't have the same enthusiasm. You read this morning, I get up to read about Bronny James. He's going to see which NBA team is the best fit, whether he's going to stay in college.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I think we talked about a little bit about Bronny James yesterday, and I'm still for him becoming a doctor instead of a basketball player. But
and may I say something about that? So the only reason why I chose the stance I did on a couple of those situations because it had to be a debate. So you remember when we were talking yesterday, and you were like, "But on your show, Sonja, you said blah blah blah," because it had to be a debate. I couldn't come on and say, "Yeah, I agree." Then it's no debate.
That's true, and that's the problem with debates, right? I know that's why Jack didn't talk a lot, because he didn't necessarily agree with what I was saying. The whole premise is, how do you defend yourself, even if you don't believe it? And I say this a lot to a lot of people. I say things that I don't even believe in sometimes, just to get things going. I mean, it just helps the show out, and that's why I do it. And but that's what the fun of the debate is.
James and I had our stance ready. James and I had our stance ready on one of them, and we had to switch it. And I heard James go first, and I was listening, and I was like, "Oh, please tag me in. This is not the way we're supposed to be going. This is not the way we rehearsed."
Realistically, how do you get rid of Bryce Young after 1 year? Realistically, the Panthers just going to ship him off somewhere. And what are they going to get for him? At most, maybe, and this is a maybe, they could get a late first-round draft choice, very late in the first round right now, at most right now.
Yeah.
But realistically, with all they gave up, you mean after 1 year they're going to get rid of him? And especially you, Mac, who says it takes time to develop a quarterback. So you're going to want to get rid of him after 1 year. And your beef with him coming out of college wasn't how good he could perform. It was his durability. And if nothing else, he showed he was durable last year.
I mean, I guess so. I guess he did. But, again, that's 1 year. And he did kind of get banged up a little bit, Jack. Again, to make the debate fun, you got to say things that are outlandish. I mean, that's how you debate points. If you're kind of lukewarm, what kind of debate would you have, right? So, you give three options: keep him, trade him, or bench him. I mean, maybe it makes sense to some people, as you saw. Some people agreed with me, trade him. That's what makes the debate fun. Yes, Sonja.
And let's just be clear. First of all, James, you don't know this. Well, you probably do because you watched the show before you came on. Mac literally has a predisposition of despising the South. Okay, so let's be clear. He's going to be biased against anybody in the NFC South because he's a Giants fan. He's a New Yorker. So let me put that out there.
That's so untrue. Ask Jack. I think Derek Carr
college quarterbacks historically he's called him right.
And I'll tell you, you are correct.
With the Niners, what they gave up for Trey Lance, he thought very little of Zach Wilson. He thought Trevor Lawrence would be a good quarterback, but not this exceptional generational talent. He's been calling him pretty good as far as quarterback.
Bryce definitely proved he's durable when he's with the worst offensive line in the league. He definitely got initiated.
Let me tell you something, and I'm going to tell you why I watched quarterbacks, how they process, even in college, what they do it's easy to throw the ball up and hopefully your wide receiver catches the ball. That's easy to do. I did that. I'm just saying, to read a defense in the NFL is a lot harder than college. And if you can't do it in college, you got a lot of problems coming in the pro. And the reason, and me, I've quarterbacked before. I've coached a position. I kind of know a little bit about it, and I just don't. You can't depend on the offensive line anymore. That's not an excuse anymore. If it was, Joe Burrows would stink. There's a lot of quarterbacks out there with not a good offensive line, and they still make the plays happen. And today, you can't use the offensive line. You could before. I've heard all the excuses about Daniel Jones. He got sacked 100 times. It doesn't matter anymore. You've got to be able to make plays as the other quarterback showed that replaced Daniel Jones. They had the same offensive line, but yet the Giants won. So you can't use that excuse anymore. It's old and it's not real anymore. And if you have a good running game and a good offensive line, that's a totally different story because you need a good offensive line to run the ball. Go ahead, Jay.
My question is, what type of offense were the Panthers running? I mean, typically, if you're like you said, when you can't use an offensive line as an excuse, right, you have to be able to have like a West Coast offense when you drop back 3 seconds, throwing the ball on a slant and something like that, getting rid of the ball.
They do that. I mean,
there was so many blitzes.
Carolina, I'm going to come to Carolina's defense here. Carolina doesn't have the wide receivers that Cincinnati has or some of the other teams have. Exactly. I agree with that. But again, your job as a quarterback is to make those plays, and unfair or not, that's how you're judged in the end. And if Bryce Young can't do this, I say he's going to be a bust. And I'm not trying to be with Carolina. He's going to be a bust. That's my fear for. That's my fear for him. If he was with another team, maybe he makes it. I don't know. I don't think he'll ever be a great quarterback. I don't think he was worth being first taken in the draft. But, maybe he becomes a better quarterback on a different team. And that's why I say trade him. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm saying give the guy a chance. And I know it's only his first year. He does have to develop. Who's going to develop him there? Who's he going to look to? Hopefully that coach.
They said they chose him first because he's able to read plays and read the defense supposedly better than CJ Stroud, but I don't know about that now because the proof is there. Like Jack said, you show one thing and you perform differently.
Right. They need a good quarterback coach or a great offensive coordinator or a head coach that's offensively inclined, and maybe he gets better. I don't see it the next 3 years. I really don't. He's gonna have to take some moves.
Yeah, the word in Carolina is next season is going to make a big difference on what they do going forward. And you're right to that end. If they're going to trade him, you'll want to trade him early rather than let him sit there and continue to get beat on. And then his durability and everything is just gone down and he's not worth the trade anymore.
Who is their backup in Carolina next year? Not Andy Dalton. I mean, he's gone, right?
For now, right. Andy Dalton.
Well, I don't see him starting the season in Carolina, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't even know if Dalton's coming back, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
We went from having like 5 or 6 quarterbacks on the roster to only like 1 and a possible. It's almost like playing spades.
Yes. We'll see. Hang in there. You're a fan, and that's great. I hung in there for years.
Thanks for my Carolina time, man.
No problem.
Thanks, Jack.
So, there are free agents that are kind of under the radar that that will help another team. They won't be a star, but they could be an important part of the team. And let's start with Houston. Houston has a couple of soon-to-be free agents. One is defensive end Derek Barnett. I don't know if you guys watch him. He's kind of undersized. He's smaller than most defensive ends, but he played real well at the end of the season and in the playoff game for Houston. And it looks like that they're going to let him go, or he's going to go somewhere and hopefully maybe get more playing time. So Barnett would help a lot of defenses out there if he does decide, or if they do let him go. So that's one of the guys under the radar. Wide receiver Noah Brown, also with Houston, had 2 consecutive 500-yard seasons receiving the ball. Again, not a great wide receiver, but a wide receiver option out there that other teams may want to take a chance on. Tyrell Dobson, linebacker, was great in the beginning of the year for Buffalo, got hurt. Buffalo has a huge salary cap. He's going to demand a lot of money, so they might end up getting rid of him. Zach Moss, running back for the Colts, right? He had a great beginning of the year. Best season he's ever had, 795 yards before the Colts running back.
Jonathan Taylor.
Thank you. Came back. Zach Moss could be a good addition to a lot of different teams out there. So those are some of the running backs of the many. I mean, some of the free agents of the many out there that people really aren't talking about, guys. And they could help out a Carolina. They could help out a New Orleans. They could help out the Jets and the Giants. And we'll see what happens and if people step up and sign them. I could see Zach Moss right now as a second running back to a lot of teams, guys, or even starting on some teams.
Well, Mac, I'd like to talk about the wide receiver Marquise Brown from the Cardinals. The Ravens actually traded for him in a 3rd-round pick to the Cardinals for the 2022 first-round pick. And even though Arizona was kind of up and down, especially with his own injuries and Kyler Murray being injured at the time, he still came in ranking as like a 70.5 receiving grade. So even he would be a benefit to Carolina. He's definitely under the radar. I think he comes in like barely at the top 20 or something to that effect. But definitely another good idea that's right under the radar.
Yeah. I mean, this is where teams make, and these free agents determine whether you make the playoffs or not. What kind of output do they have on the team? How well do they play on the team? I mean, it just adds something to the team where these guys make one big play that could turn your season around. So, it's to me, it's important that these teams go and look at these players that are not on the top, like a Mike Evans and stuff like this. The Jets, we'll talk a little bit about the Jets. I know Jack loves talking about the Jets and what they need. And Jack's already said this. So I'm going to go over for the people that didn't hear it. Jets need a quarterback besides Aaron Rodgers because we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, you could always pick up some veterans somewhere. I kind of wonder, the Jets who don't have a 2nd-round selection, they're obviously not going to take a quarterback with a 10th overall pick. They'll either go offensive line, wide receiver, possibly tight end Brock Bowers. But in the 3rd round, I kind of wonder if one of the quarterback slips a little, who we were talking about earlier, like Penix or Bo Nix, perhaps, whether the Jets are going to take a chance on a young quarterback. Because with Aaron Rodgers' age, even though he says he wants to play a few more years, I kind of wonder if they're going to be a succession plan. And I also kind of wonder the clout that Aaron Rodgers has in the organization, would it tick him off a little bit if they took a quarterback in the third round? Because remember, it happened with Big Ben Roethlisberger when the Steelers took Mason Rudolph years ago. He really wasn't happy about it. And even though Rodgers wouldn't come out publicly and say anything, the thought process is going to be, well, we need, help on the offensive line. Why are you taking a backup quarterback when you can get, some veteran somewhere like an Andy Dalton, who we mentioned earlier?
Well, let me bring in James here, because he said he watched, all the stuff from the combine. Now, two quarterbacks besides Penix, had a real good showing. One was J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. He showed his arm strength. Another one was Bo Nix, and a lot of people are acting like Bo Nix is not up with these other quarterbacks. I disagree. I think he's a heck of an athlete. He can throw on the run. He's got a strong arm. He's very accurate. In fact, he was like 75% accurate last year. They barely lost to Washington. They had a shot at getting into the national championship. Is Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy underrated coming into this draft, James?
J.J. McCarthy is. He just didn't get – he played in the offense where it was run heavy. He didn't get an opportunity to really expose his talents with his arm strength. But when he did, he saved them on a lot of third and longs. When you were needed, he threw to their tight end, their receivers, and they were very accurate throws. And as you can see, when he displayed it at the combine, he was actually pretty good. He didn't show super talent. He showed that he can be a capable starter in the league. Bo Nix, he missed some throws during the combine. And I think he could be a really good quarterback, but he could be serviceable. But I wouldn't take him in the first round. I think he's more of a second round guy. But some team's going to reach, a quarterback needy team is going to reach for him, though.
Let me throw this at you, James. Let me just throw this scenario at you. The LA Chargers go number 5 overall in the draft. Jim Harbaugh, McCarthy's coach in college, is now the coach of the Chargers. He reportedly believes big time in McCarthy, his guy. Now, Justin Herbert's coming off a down year with the Chargers, but his stock is obviously very high. If you're Harbaugh, McCarthy's going to be there at number 5. Can you imagine what you could get for Justin Herbert? You could get at least 2 number 1s going forward. Number 1 this year, number 1 next year, and probably a couple of third-round draft choices on top of that if you traded Justin Herbert. You make the bold move. If McCarthy is that good, why not just make the move? But it better work out, because Justin Herbert's one of the big-name quarterbacks. Would you consider making the move if you were Harbaugh and you really believed in McCarthy the way he says he does?
That's a huge risk, considering. But you look at Herbert. I mean, he's been through different coaches. He's been through different offense coordinators, and obviously they haven't had the opportunity to win. But as Max said, you got to win ultimately at the quarterback. There's no excuse. Everything's on you, whether you win or lose. I could see Harbaugh making that move. Yes, if he really believed in his guy, he gets him at 5th overall. I would make that move. But if he really believed in him, yes, I could see him making that move and getting picks to build up, because their team is a little long in the tooth, and at the skill position, the receivers, running back, they can use some help in the defense. So yeah, if he's worth a ransom, then why not take it? I could see him making that move. I just would, if I was in his position, but I'm not in his position.
I don't think he makes that move. I think Herbert had a down year. He did. But first 4 years, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the AFC. And he knows all the team guys there. The team guys know him. J.J. McCarthy would be walking into a room that, he's going to have to earn his spot. He's going to have to get the respect of players. He's going to have to do a lot of things. And it will be seen The only reason why he's there is because of Harbaugh. I don't know if that's a good position to put him in.
He
I
would
think
automatically have big respect because he's Harbaugh's guy. So
yeah,
automatically
is that, is that really? That's not earned respect, Jack. That's respect because he's the the coach's the coach's pick. When I'm saying, I think JJ McCarthy would be good on certain teams, on teams that really don't need a quarterback right away. I think he would be good with something like that because I think that maybe he does need a couple years or a year or two to get better. And I think that's where McCarthy would fit in best.
But consider the X factor. He's probably then going to wind up in Harbaugh's division with the Broncos or the Raiders.
Well, I mean, I don't know what
I would have to play him twice a year.
Why? I don't think Harbaugh's scared to play him twice a year, Jack. I mean, maybe he would be. I don't know. I don't think McCarthy starts right away. I really don't. I think he's going to go to a team that really doesn't need a quarterback right away, a starting quarterback. I think. I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. Go ahead,
I want to kind of insert something. Mac, you brought up the fact that the Jets need a quarterback and trade possibilities. Jack, I have a question for you. Have you thought about the possibility of the Jets trading the Dancing Bear while they still can? Mekhi Becton, number 11 overall pick in 2020. He played more snaps this year than he did in the previous seasons combined. He's had some injuries that he's dealt with, and just you see why they call him the Dancing Bear, just kind of some clumsy plays there. But perhaps while they still can get some type of trade capital for him, he's actually coming up in free agency. Do you see them trading him to possibly go towards that quarterback?
Yeah, and I could see him being a cap casualty, but what would they really get for him draft-wise? They wouldn't get as much as you think they would. We're talking about like a 4th round draft pick, maybe someone that makes the team, maybe even starts. I mean, who knows what they get, but there are a lot of problems. I think the Jets are going to look more towards free agency, to patch up their offensive line. I mean, they have a lot of needs. They need like 3 offensive linemen. They need another wide receiver, good wide receiver, not the guys that Aaron Rodgers is bringing like Lazard and Cobb. In the tight end position, which they might address as well, and a running back too. Dalvin Cook really didn't work out. It's a secondary running back to Breece Hall. Notice I'm not talking defense. What happens if a guy like Dallas Turner's available and he's the best player at number 10? Do you take him or do you just go according to need? I mean, I don't know how James feels about this. Following the combine, but I've always been a big believer you go for the best player unless it's so obvious you can't take anyone for that position. Like an example, the Kansas City Chiefs. If the best player available is a quarterback, they're obviously not going to draft a quarterback. But otherwise, you take the best player available. And what happens if it's on the defensive side of the ball and you're the Jets? You already have an elite defense. Do you add to that?
I do not. If you trade for a player like Aaron Rodgers and you're lacking on offense, I think you're going to add to the offense more because you're in the win now mode. So you're going to either, like you said, alluded to, that you may go with Brock Bowers, which would be a great weapon for them. And then you plug him in, he's a starter immediately. You get another wide receiver, and you can get the draft, as you saw in the combine, is deep with talent. So you don't even have to. Do they have a 2nd round pick?
No, the Packers got that. Rodgers. So Packers would have gotten their 1st round. They had Rodgers played 65% of the snaps. Obviously, didn't. Wow.
Well, you can get another guy in the 3rd or 4th round or 5th round. You'll get some talent, and you can utilize a guy as long as you have somebody that you can fit into your offense. That's suit the strengths of the wide receiver. It doesn't have to be a 1st round talent like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. or Roma Odunze. But Odunze, excuse me. But you can get some of those other guys that actually. This is why we talk about the combine. Some of those guys that actually showcase that they're a little faster, that they can actually run the side routes and the different route trees that they did. These guys are smaller schools that show up that could be a weapon. I mean, you see Aaron Rodgers, he had they never really had a big guy besides Devontae Adams for Rodgers and Donald Driver and Jennings early on in the career. But you just need one of those smaller guys. I think that's all they need. I wouldn't try to get a defensive guy because their defense is pretty elite. They really were lacking on the offense.
It's funny you mentioned Devontae Adams. I was going to say his general manager just came out this week and said he's not leaving. And there's been some up and down, whereas they were saying that the Jets had been trying to court him to bring him over to pair him with Rodgers. But the general manager of the Raiders said this week that Devontae is definitely going to be a Raider next season.
There's the cap. I mean, everyone talks, make this move, make that move. It's not logical, certain moves, to make under the cap. And he was your boy Derek Carr's college receiver, Devontae Adams. That didn't work out. See, this exactly worked wonders for the Raiders.
Yes, it has. So
let's have a good story.
Let's finish up with the Jets because we've talked way too much Jets, in my opinion, in this show so the Jets are normally on ESPN New York. They're going to a classic rock station, 104.3. Some people may think that's crazy, but they do that. In Connecticut, the Patriots, believe it or not, are 2 rock stations, and that just goes to show that football is even more popular than classic rock. Go figure. So anyway, the Jets will be on, for all you Jet fans on the radio, 104.3. So anybody out there that wants to go listen to them this year. The New York Giants, Darren Waller's talking about retirement. Thank God. I mean, the guy is hurt all the time. There's something definitely wrong with him. He hardly played it off for the Giants. When he did, he wasn't the playmaker he was when he was with the Raiders. I think sometimes guys just get hurt too much and they can't play and be effective as they were. We've seen it with a lot of players. Good luck to him. I don't know what would keep him there. With the Giants will have to pay him more money. I don't go for that. I mean,
what's this 3 off years in a row? I mean, that's enough after a while. Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, it's not his fault he's getting injured per se, but 3 years in a row, you just can't count on him.
He doesn't look like a typical big built strong tight end either, right? He looks like a skinny framed wide receiver and maybe the Giants should have used him a little bit more outside than they did going across the middle. I mean, he just doesn't look like your tight end prototype like a Kelsey or a Kittle or something like that. He looks more like a tall receiver that's kind of thin. And for the Raiders, they used him going deep, where the Giants really didn't. Maybe he just doesn't have the speed yet either. I don't know, but good luck to him. I hope he's a real good guy. He talks about alcoholism a lot, and maybe that'll be something that he can do as maybe a job later on. He is a really nice guy.
Well, let me ask you guys your opinion on this because we're talking NFL. No one else commented on this that it bothered them, but it kind of bothered me. DeMar Hamlin talking about wanting to end his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I know he has a good relationship with Mike Tomlin, I think going back to when he was in high school, which is great. But considering what he's meant to the community in Buffalo and the way the outpouring of love they gave him, how can he say that? I mean, even if he feels it, keep quiet about it. I mean, he's a borderline NFL player. He fits in somewhere between the practice squad and making the active roster. But how could he even talk saying, I want to end my career as a Steeler after, the impact he's had on the Buffalo community? That struck me as just plain wrong.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was just like, wow, like it felt like it came out of nowhere until I did read he had a connection with Mike Tomlin, but you haven't played as a Steeler. I'm just confused, and you really haven't taken the field that much since everything occurred. And like you said, Buffalo literally embraced him, like between Buffalo and the Bengals, because that was when that occurred. Bills Mafia, I've seen a side of them I had never seen, with the exception when Josh Allen's grandmother had passed and they raised all that money to dedicate this wing in her honor, something with another team through the playoffs. But we saw a compassionate side of football that we rarely see. And to literally merge and marry, basically, for lack of a better comparison, the afterlife with present life and the possibilities that all came with is just something we probably will never see again. And so for him to have such a phenomenal experience, and one that we hope we never see again, but to see the surrounding, I'm always a person that's a loyalist. I was baffled. Like, no matter what type of connection you have with someone, that's your individual connection. That's not your team experience. And so for me, I was a little thrown about that as well, Jack.
Well, he played for Pitt and he's from Pittsburgh, but still, what he's meant to the Buffalo community, that's what gets me. After all they've given him, and he's like a permanent part of that community, like going forward, and it just bothered me. I'm sure there was no ill intention on his part, but to me, if I'm a Buffalo fan, I'm kind of hurt by the remark.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, if you're there supporting this guy, raising money for this guy or one of his charities or whatever, and then him to turn around and say, hey, see, I want to go play in Pittsburgh. I imagine they still love what he represented, but it would kind of hurt my feelings. I think it really would. So anyway, a little bit more about that. Go ahead, James.
My question. You got to cut in. You got to get more in the habit of cutting us off.
I see that.
Don't worry about being rude on this show. Matt cut us off himself. Don't worry.
What is his status? Free agency. What is he a free agent?
I don't know.
That's a good question. I can't imagine him being given more than a year-to-year contract because he's a borderline roster player in reality. So,
right. I would imagine that this is more so coming from the business side of it, which with all your opinions, I agree with all your opinions that he should, even if the business side came into play, like, okay, we're not going to re-sign you or we're going to let you go. You keep that to yourself, and maybe he's just trying to advertise himself to get on with the team because maybe he's not. He's not much of a chance of getting on. Like you said, he was a borderline player, and then he's a health risk. So who's going to really hire him? So maybe he's just trying.
I don't know if he's a health risk right now because he was cleared. But last year, the Bills put him on the practice squad. And I thought to myself, there's no way they're going to cut this guy, even if they normally would cut him from the team in training camp. What he meant to the franchise emotionally and to the city emotionally, there's no way they're going to cut him. He's going to make the team as either, if not the active roster, on the practice squad. And that's how it played out.
I can.
And he's entering his fourth and final year of his rookie contract in Buffalo.
Okay. But what I can remember is him actually making a tackle, coming from the cornerback position, making a tackle, and getting a standing ovation just for making a tackle. I mean, right. This is how much this means to these guys. But anyway, we'll see. Good luck to him, whatever he decides to do. So let me finish up with the Giants. And I don't know if I'm happy about this or not. Drake May is kind of following Eli Manning around. He says, he's like trying to sponge everything up for Eli Manning. That Eli gave him great advice, just to be yourself. That's just tremendous advice. But I saw him kind of throw his hat in for Daniel Jones, that he still should be the starting quarterback. The Giants have a legitimate shot of getting Drake May. I think they're going to do it. And when they get Drake May, who does Eli support then? Does he support the young Drake May, or does he support Daniel Jones? And the biggest question to me is, Drake May going to Eli's camp? Does that matter? Does that throw his support somewhere? I'm just talking. I don't know. But anyway,
I don't know today. Legitimate chance of getting him. Think of this: top three teams. Drake May is supposed to go second or third. It's possibly slips to Arizona at number 4. Is going to take Marvin Harrison. And
right.
At number 5 of the Chargers, have Justin Herbert. They're not taking a quarterback. Yeah, it's possible. But do you really think Drake May's going to slip, that someone's not going to all of a sudden, like the Falcons, trade down if all of a sudden Drake May's available?
I think first of all, Justin Fields goes to Atlanta. I think that's almost done. I think that the Giants
almost done. Wait. When did you get almost done, Mac?
I'm telling you, when I just saw
anyone else heard of that? Almost done. The Falcons. We got to calm that down on these things.
Just before I got on, I read that this deal is almost done. That they've already inquired that it will happen before the draft. That the Falcons.
It's possible. It's possible. So, I'm not saying it. What are the Falcons supposed to do?
So anyway, I don't want to talk about the Falcons. You want to talk about the Falcons. Let's continue on with this. So Drake May, to me, now tell me if I'm wrong here. Drake May led the league, led the quarterbacks in rushing 2 years ago. He had more than Caleb Williams 2 years ago. He's a big guy. Kind of reminds me of Justin Herbert. He's an athlete. He can throw the ball long, a little bit, maybe not as accurate as Justin Herbert was, but he's an athlete. And I think he's going to be a really good quarterback coming in. I don't know, a franchise quarterback, I don't know, maybe a Trevor Lawrence quarterback. I think whoever gets him, has a good quarterback, guys. I don't know if he's going to be as good as Caleb Williams or better. We'll see. But I think the Giants would be foolish not to go up and try to get a quarterback this year. Yeah.
So you think that they try to move up to get Drake May?
Yes, if they have to.
Okay, that's the only way they would.
They have the sixth overall. They have the sixth overall pick. So to go to number 3 in the draft or something of Drake, they'd have to move up ahead. You mean they should flip-flop 3 and 6 and give up a number 1 next year, something like that? Because I know the Jets did something similar when they drafted Sam Darnold. They went number 6 as well, and they gave up 3 second-round draft choices to move from 6 to 3. They gave them to do business with Indianapolis, and we see that didn't exactly work out.
And ultimately, they likely have to move up to number 2 because there's a strong possibility that he goes to Washington.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay,
I don't think so. Wait a minute, Jack. Let me finish up on that. I think Caleb Williams ends up at Washington with his old offensive coordinator. I think that's.
I was going to say that, but what can Washington give to make it happen with Chicago?
I think they give the farm. They'll give the farm. They'll give the farm to Chicago. They'll give the farm to him. They're going to give everything to him to get him. I believe. What
does Chicago then do? Do they stick with Justin Fields or do they draft Drake May, for example, because they'll have the next pick if that deal is made?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they even trade down and get more picks. I don't know. I'm not sure what they do there. They
flip flop 1 and 2 in Washington and then have extra picks. But as far as the quarterback situation, they'd still be in great shape, the Bears, to get one of the quarterbacks, even Drake May, Jaden Daniels, whoever they might like.
They're at 9th. They're still at 9th, so they still can move up if they have to again. I mean, they
wouldn't have to if they have the 2nd overall pick. It would be right there for them. Anyone but Caleb Williams.
The Bears rule the draft. No team has ruled this draft since the Cowboys traded Herschel Walker. They rule the draft this year, and whatever Chicago does, it's going to affect the whole draft. We have the Philly sports guy in. Let's bring him up, Jamie Pags. How's it going, Jamie?
Pretty well. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey, listen, Jack. I'm going to be coming down to Florida tomorrow, and I still need a place to stay. So I'm gonna go crash on your couch.
Well, speak to me after the show. Yeah, I'll have a spot for you. None of your Philly friends are welcome, though, along with you, because I know they did away with Dollar Dog Night. The Phillies, because they were very unruly.
Hey, listen. I was okay with that. First off, those dogs, if you've ever eaten one of those dogs, and I've had to every Dollar Dog Day because I'm there at the stadium, and they're like the worst dogs you could possibly get mass cooked, undercooked, and like it's just they're thrown together. They're thrown in like tinfoil and they're squished. The reason why they threw them because that was the best thing to do with them because you really could eat them. So people would spend dollars and make them like a piece of tinfoil, and you're throwing tinfoil all over the place. So I was okay with them to quitting Dollar Dog Day.
Well, I heard they're going to go 2 for what is it, Jack? 2 for $5 is where they're going
2
next
for
week.
$5. They're going to do. They figure the Philly fans are so cheap they wouldn't want the increase 2 dogs for $5, so that'll lessen the crowd.
You know what? It's such a mess when they do Dollar Dog Night, and it was such a stress for everybody except the fans. And the fans are crying like this is like the biggest staple in the world. Listen, when they used to do Dollar Dog Night, like back in the day, they used to have Philly's Franks, and they would give away free tickets in the hot dogs. They don't do that anymore because, it's obviously the tickets are a lot more expensive than they were back then. But they couldn't give the tickets away was the problem. And that's why they were doing these type of promotions. The Phillies ticket right now is a tough ticket to get. So I'm on board. No Dollar Dog Night. Thank you. You know what I mean? 2 for $5, I don't care. You know what I mean? As long as they're decent hot dogs. If they're still the $1 hot dogs for the 2 for $5, it ain't worth it.
All right. So we're talking hot dogs on the big football show. See, this is what Jack does to me. He brings us down these.
No, Mac, I just realized something. It costs you $5 to get 2 dogs, but for Carolina Panther tickets at the end of the year, you could have gotten one for $3. So
Really?
the Philly
You're back to that?
worth more than a Panther.
Go ahead and mute him, man. Mute Jack.
I have done that in the past. That's for sure. So Pags, the biggest Eagles news that I read about was Beard, your safety, that they're gonna let him go. He played pretty good for y'all last year, but I guess the cap is concerns about some of the players that are with Philadelphia. Am I right? What I'm saying?
No, I don't think that we have a cap issue. Obviously, we have a lot of money on the cap, but we're saving $14 million by dropping him. He's only $750,000 dead money, so it's worth it. Like even dropping him and then thinking about re-signing him is a better thing to do rather than just having him go $14 million against the cap.
Yeah. All right, and the other story that I read was that Sirianni is happy with Jalen Hurts' quarterback style, how he leads the team. A lot of people had problems with what happened last year and kind of put himself away from the team, that the Eagles were kind of protecting him a little bit. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, there are some ways to lead the team. One is being by quiet and by example. Would you rather have a guy that fired up your offense or somebody like Eli Manning was? He just goes out there and kind of doesn't say anything.
Like I said, there was a situation that occurred that I think that had everybody kind of disconnected, and the frustration happened during the disconnect with everybody. It wasn't just Jalen Hurts, but it was everybody seemed disconnected, including the entire defense. So I kind of feel that it's not, 2 years ago, nobody was complaining about the way he was leading the team, and he was fiery guy, so does he seem like he's going to be the most, is he Tom Brady? No, he's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady got in anybody's face and did anything he wanted to do because he was Tom Brady, and he earned that right. Jalen Hurts hasn't really earned that right. And like I said, last year, there was a situation that occurred that kind of put everybody, aback a little bit and took everybody off of their game. So, yes, I would like to see that. I would like to see everybody on their game. And I think if everybody's on their game, everything will be a lot different.
Yeah. I mean, they got the talent. There's no doubt about that. Them and the Cowboys are probably the two talented teams in the NFC East right now. Maybe in the NFC, not counting San Francisco.
Well, the Cowboys aren't, because the Cowboys are going to have to lose some players here just to be able to make it. Like, unless they can figure out a way to defer Dak's $60 million till like 4 years from now, which is just kicking the can down the lane. I mean, they're going to have a real hard time, and they're going to lose some players because of the cap hits that they have. I feel like San Francisco is still going to be the team to beat, and the Eagles are going to have to do that.
Yeah. I listen. I see Detroit out there too, Bags. I see them up there, maybe having a chance to really go to Super Bowl. They're very talented too, and they got a very good head coach. So I would throw them in the mix there also, Bags.
So the one thing about them is that they have to make sure their defense stays together and they don't lose too many pieces on that defense. The offense, I think, is a halfway decent offense that will score some points, but their defense is going to be what will win them games. And ultimately, I think that's the difference between Detroit and San Francisco. I think San Francisco is a little bit more of a complete team, and they are going to stay together for the most part. Detroit has got some pieces that are going to leave. Are going to have to leave, and they got to get other pieces to replace them.
Well, let me give you my top teams in NFC, and I'll get your thoughts on this. I think San Francisco, I agree with you, is probably number one. I think Detroit's number two. I think Philly and Dallas maybe tied at number three. And I think don't count out the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have really looked good last year, and I think they'll get nothing but better this year too. I think Green Bay's a legitimate Super Bowl contender also. What do you think, James?
I think the order that you mixed in is correct, but I would put the Eagles over the Cowboys, and Green Bay was a surprise. I guess Jordan Love, the brass knew what they had in Jordan Love, and so he just showed that he could be a top quarterback in this league, top 10 quarterback in this league. And I think they're gonna continue to be successful.
If I'm not mistaken, Sonja, Detroit beat Kansas City the first game. A lot of people thought that might happen, but they also beat a couple other big teams along the way. Is Detroit the favorite this year? Can they beat San Francisco?
I certainly think so. The 49ers throughout the season did not look as solid as they did in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl being the exception to the performance. I was impressed with how their defense showed up and even the offense to the very end. But let's be honest, the defensive coordinator that got them through that season is no longer with the 49ers, Steve Wilks. So now they have a new defensive coordinator coming in. They're going to have to acclimate to that change as well. And let's be honest, the Lions are for real. I really believe that. I believe the hype, so to say. Dan Campbell had them really riled up. He had them playing really well. They have a lot of weapons on that team with Jahmyr Gibbs and Amara St. Brown. A lot of weapons that everyone took note of this year. And if those guys came in at the beginning playing like that, just imagine with the maturity that continues on throughout the off season and training and what have you, they're going to be pretty lethal next season. And they're going to definitely be one of those teams that learn from the mistakes that they lost, those games they lost this season, and try to capitalize. Plus the schedule changes next year. So they're going to have different opportunities to play different teams, but they're definitely going to be formidable to be the ones that can bring the 49ers down.
Well, now they have a target on their back. Before they were the kind of hunter, they're going to be the hunted out there. Jack, you talked about Detroit a couple of years ago. You kind of foresaw this happening as you projected them going up. You were like a year behind or so, a year ahead or something. But Jack called the Detroit Lions. He called them that they were going to be a legitimate playoff team. I think it was a couple of years ago, Jack.
Yeah, but you wonder, did they miss the opportunity? I mean, Dan Campbell was being brutally honest by saying they might never get that opportunity again to have the Super Bowl, practically in their hands and to let that lead slip away. It's so hard to get back to the spot you were before. It's not just personnel and the moves you make in the off season. It's how you're playing at the time. People forget that late in the season, Kansas City was beaten pretty soundly by the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders really outplayed them. And that was a big regular season game for Kansas City. And when Kansas City started the playoffs, I mean, they weren't exactly going in with much momentum, yet they straightened the ship out. And you kind of wonder what the case is going to be with the Lions in that regard, because something about the Lions, there's an inconsistency. They'll show moments of brilliance, and then, it's going to kind of slack off. And even when we were talking about the Eagles before, which Eagle team, for example, and this goes for all teams in the NFL, which ones are going to show up? The Eagles were so bad the last 5 games. Is that just an aberration? Is that just an attitude thing? Is it going to be straight now that has their window closed? And I don't mean get specifically on Philadelphia. I'm talking about all teams. We see it so much at the time. The team's playing really well, and then they lose it, and because there's such parity in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the parity thing, because normally it's the same teams fighting for the Super Bowl every year, basically. But anyway, I get your point, Jack. Pags, well, first let me go through the rest of the NFC East here. Some news. Washington releases tight end Logan Thomas, a really good tight end. I guess Washington's pushing on from some of these players here. Dallas, they're saying they're keeping Trey Lance, good for Dallas, and they need some big bodies in the middle to stop the run. Let's see, the Saints, they're releasing Marcus May, James, safety, kind of getting older now, right? He's out of his prime now. A lot of money going towards him. They're going to try and cut that back. I guess it will open like $7.2 something million in cap space. And I heard some rumors about Kamara might, even though he's not a free agent, they might try to see what they can get for him. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts in regards to Marcus May, he's had some trouble off the field the past few seasons, and he hasn't been on the field. He's been often injured. So that equation is not a good equation to keep someone that, okay, if you're a moderate starter, above average player, and you have some trouble off the field, we can keep you and deal with you. But if you're having some issues off the field and you're not playing because you're often injured, and we have a couple of guys that we can fill in that can play your role, like they drafted a 5th round pick last year, and he played pretty decent for him, filling in for him. And yeah, I'd go ahead and get rid of him. But in regards to Kamara, that's not going to happen. I mean, why would you trade away a wonderful asset like that when you're bringing in a guy like Clint Kubiak from San Francisco that pretty much they show you what they did with McCaffrey, C-Mac. Alvin Kamara is pretty much the same player, and he's still in his prime. I mean, they revitalized C-Mac's career, because you remember when he was in Carolina, he was great there in the beginning, but then he started getting injured, and he wasn't the same guy. But when he went out to San Francisco, he did great, and I think they're going to do the same thing for Kamara.
Well, Kamara's making $15 million salary annually, and that's why it was word that maybe they might try to cut that money out of their salary cap, and that's why they mentioned that might be a play for him. I believe they keep him too, to be honest with you. He's great catching the ball in the backfield and running the football. He's a two-way threat, and it would, that's like having a receiver and a running back in one. So you're getting 2 for the price of 1 there. So I agree with you. I think they keep Kamara. Pags, the Eagles. A couple big signings coming up. We've talked about it before. Smith is one of them. What's going to happen with your offensive line if Kelsey leaves? Do you need to bring another center in? Do you need to draft a center just in case he does? I mean, there's a lot of things that Philadelphia has to consider going forward next year.
Actually, we have 2 centers that we drafted. One was named Juergens, one was named Dickinson. So the center position is actually going to get filled in quite nicely, I think. As I believe, they always like drafting offensive linemen, and they always like that offensive lineman to wait a year before they play them anyways to go through Stoutland University, which is the offensive line coach. So the offensive line, I have really no concerns about whatsoever. Smith is going to need to get some extra money, and I think that he deserves to get paid as long as he's realistic. I don't think he deserves $17 million a year, but he should be in that $10 million a year range. Maybe a little bit more. And then I think they need to invest some money on the linebackers and in the secondary. That's where the money's got to go this year. It may be time, and they're talking about this in Philadelphia sports radio right now, that the last time that they drafted a cornerback in the first round was Sheldon Brown in 2002. So it might be time to invest that first round pick, and there's enough cornerbacks to be around pick 21, because that's where the Eagles are picking, to justify that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Listen, again, your GM has a way of just picking people out of the air and sign them to 1-year contracts. I would imagine you'll have vets that will be doing that next year too, just to add to the team. I don't know if Cox comes back or not. He might be done. He might try to push on to maybe sports commenting or broadcasting or something, but he's been a heck of a warrior for you guys for a long time.
Cox will not do that. As much as I like him, I don't think that he is as affable and verbal. I don't know that he would be good on television. So I think that when he retires, he's going to wind up going to his ranch in Texas and fading off into the sunset type. Like come back for when they bring back the old guys. But other than that, I don't.
Maybe he coaches back. Maybe he goes back home and coaches a high school team or something like that.
Maybe. I mean that's more realistic. I don't think that he's meant for television.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little NBA, guys. LeBron James, 40,000 points, went by it. No matter what you think about the guy personally or how he's, a coach killer or whatever you want to say about him, to hit 40,000 is incredible. I mean, if you may not, maybe he's not Michael Jordan, maybe he's not even Wilt Chamberlain or whatever, but you got to give the guy credit where credit's due. Still playing at a high level, still can take over a game at 37 or whatever he is now, 40 something, I don't know. But the guy is an incredible athlete, stays in great shape, and is going to be in the history books, going to Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it. James, I see you nodding your head. What do you think? I mean, do you like him personally, or is it just professionally as a basketball player?
I started watching LeBron James from when he was at Vincent St. Mary's, and I believed in the hype when I saw him play. And when I saw his first game in the NBA, he scored 25 points, and I was like, man, this guy really is the truth. And I followed his whole career in the NBA, man. And I'm just impressed with not only who he is on the court, but off the court as well, and what he's done in the community. But to hit 40,000 points, I'll be honest with you, I never thought no one would break Kareem's record ever. I mean, I thought Karl Malone, he came in second, he'd be the next guy to get there, but it was just too tough, man. And you got to think, Kareem did it not shooting. He only made 1 3 in his whole career, 1 3. And LeBron James, man, he's a different animal, because you can't just include his 40,000 points. You got to look at the assists that he has as well to go along. And he's not the average guy to do the assists. I mean, so he's kind of along the lines of a Kareem or Wilt Chamberlain type of player. It's just different the way he's made. He's not. I wouldn't consider him in like a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant type of player. He's more of a big. I mean, he's a big. You can look at him moderately. He's 6'9", 250.
Yes, a big player in a soft league. Jack was smiling as you're talking. I know he's ready. I mean, maybe it should have been one of our debate questions. Go ahead, Jack.
I actually like LeBron James. He's a good family man. He does a lot of charitable things. Okay, so I actually do like him. Don't be overly impressed with what he's done on the court. Don't be overly impressed by a guy who goes to his son's college game and while the national anthem is being played, just walks to his seat and ignores it, which is in sharp contrast to the great sprinter Usain Bolt, who when he was being interviewed said, "Excuse me, let's wait until the American national anthem is complete before I talk." And he's been a coach killer. Let's be honest about it. I mean, he's the reason David Black got let go at Cleveland with a 30-11 record. He's the reason Mike Brown was let go with the Cavaliers. And if you need any evidence that it was LeBron, keep in mind, after LeBron left, they rehired Mike Brown, the Cavaliers, as their coach. And this is the same guy who puts his son on the cover of Sports Illustrated with him, says Bronny is better than a number of NBA players. And then when Bronny's draft status and the mock draft slips, he said, leave him alone. Let him enjoy the college experience. And he accuses people of being haters. This is the same guy when Brittany Griner was in captivity saying, I don't even know why she'd want to come back here to the United States. I'm not impressed with a lot of the mistakes he made, but I still like him. Like I said, good family man, has done a lot of good charitable things. And I think underneath all that, he is a good person, but there have been a lot of miscues.
Just to walk on that, just to what you're saying. I mean, I think that when he's put out into the public eye, that he isn't prepped properly. I firmly believe that. Walking in on the national anthem, okay, yeah, you really shouldn't do that, but I could see where somebody could get that, as like a jab against them and turning the knife a little bit. But he's a basketball player. So when you take away all the things that he said, and you just look at him as a basketball player, he's absolutely in the conversation of one of the best 5 to ever play the game. And I think that that's really, like I said, it's when you got to take Wilt Chamberlain out because he was somebody opposite, somebody different. But like you're always going to have him at the number 4 spot. I feel you have Michael Jordan, Mamba, and then. And then you have LeBron James somewhere in that mix.
Pax.
And you all brought up Wilt Chamberlain. It's odd that the exact same 62nd anniversary of Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game was the exact same date that LeBron got his 40,000 points. So another day in history in the NBA.
So let's
Can I ask you this? Your opinion just quickly.
Go ahead.
Well, you started off. Let me wrap up LeBron James. If the Lakers win another championship with LeBron, let's say he plays for them a few more years, what does he go into the Hall of Fame as, a Cavalier or a Laker?
Well, they did win a championship. They won that in-season tournament. They put that rafter up in the rafters.
Listen, LeBron James, it's hard to say where anybody falls anymore as far as the greatest. Different eras, no 3-point line. Imagine if Jerry West had the 3-point line. Would he be the leading scorer of all time? You can't compare today to yesterday. The eras are different. The rules are different. It was a different game. It was a little bit tougher. When Jordan played, they destroyed him when he tried to go over the middle. They're not destroying anybody going over the middle anymore, unless somebody from the Golden State Warriors might be there. He might grab you and throw you down. But other than that, that's not the way the play is anymore. So it's hard to compare LeBron James to any of the past players and say who's better and who's not. It's just a totally different game. So, I always had a problem saying it's like that any sport, right? The rules have changed pretty much all through sports. Even in boxing, they used to fight till somebody was almost dead, 110 rounds. It didn't matter. The things have changed. So it's hard to compare today to yesterday. Let's say in this era, maybe he is in the top 5, top 7 or whatever. But you can't compare him to some of the past players. It's just not fair to them. It's not fair to LeBron. So anyway, Let's talk a little bit about the worst team in basketball right now. It's not Detroit anymore. It's the Washington Wizards. They fell below Detroit. Who is the owner of the Washington Wizards? Jack?
It's not a Pollen anymore. I mean, it's but they are a terrible team because they don't have upside. I mean, they Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, guys like that to build around. At least the Pistons have a number of young players led by Kate Cunningham, and they have a really good coach, Monty Williams. So I can see a much brighter day for Detroit, but this Washington franchise, I think they're going to be in quicksand for quite a while.
I'd agree with that. It's hard being a Wizard fan. It really is. It's hard.
Ted Leonsis is the owner.
Yeah. Thank you. Look at that. Sonja's all over it. Thank you,
Sonia Googled it now. I mean, you had a little
waiting for you to stop talking, Jack.
Yeah, Sonia, no one's paying attention to Sonia when I was talking, and she just Googled Wizards. Who cares about the Wizards?
What a hater.
I mean,
the Washington Wizards fans care about the Wizards.
Do they really care about the Wizards, the Washington Wizards fans? I mean, I guess.
Are there Washington Wizards fans? Because I don't see any of them at the games.
Yeah. I mean, Philadelphia is near Washington, Pax. The Wizards fans come to Philadelphia to cheer their team on. Have you noticed that?
I do notice a couple of Bullets jerseys.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the old school Washington fans.
Right. Bob Berry, West Coast.
Tell the truth, pal. The Wizard fans take over the Philadelphia court.
Honeycomb Johnson.
Yeah, the Wizards fans, they come when it's Disney on Ice. They come dressed as wizards and they do that. They were doing. I think Disney on Ice had the. It was who's the kid wizard?
I don't know. Oh yeah.
Mickey Mouse?
No, not Mickey Mouse. No, you're talking about
the kid wizard.
He has a little mind.
He had all them movies.
Harry Potter.
That's him.
Oh, I thought
Thank
you were
you
saying
to the producer.
Yeah, Harry.
Thank you to the producer. That's when all the wizards show up.
Yes,
someone help me out here. The last 2 years, the Wizards have moved on from Bradley Beal and Porzingis. What did they get in return to help, get the team going? That's what I don't get. As bad as ever, and there doesn't seem to be anything on the horizon unless they luck out in a lottery pick. And I'm not sure exactly who's there that's going to turn the team completely around.
Well, they do have like 3 first-round picks this year, right?
Yeah, but there's going to be a couple of the later picks if they having Phoenix's pick and the Celtics pick, or getting it through. No, the Celtics got Porzingis actually from Dallas, but I'm not sure where that third pick's going to come from.
But they can't draw any free agents there. They can't draw any free agents there, and why? You can't really build around Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. Those aren't the guys that you're going to build around. You need a premier superstar to be there, and it doesn't seem like one wants to come there.
It's hard to.
I mean, they're 9-48 right now, and they're about to play the Warriors. So, and the Warriors are almost split even. I think they're 29-28 or 28-29, something like that. But the Wizards are horrible.
To get a big star there, first you got to start winning, which is the problem, right? The Knicks had that problem, still kind of have that problem. They got more interest than before. The 76ers, you got Joel Embiid there, they're winning. I mean, you could get stars going there. It's very the Celtics, right? I mean, who would want to play for the Boston Celtics right now? I mean, you've got to get that winning culture first before you start looking for free agents to come.
Well, they are going to get that winning culture because they're going to draft Bronny.
Yeah, well, that's
the Wizards are going to draft Bronny. I mean, that would be a way to get somebody big name over there, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would get LeBron maybe going over there. Yeah.
And I tell you what, that would actually be a good spot for LeBron to go because they have nowhere to go but up.
That's true. Get some more points.
Yeah, but how do you put a spin? Let me ask you this. How do you put a spin on that if you're Washington? You can't say you would have drafted Bronny anyway. If you're going about number 12 or 13, you could say it even though it might be a stretch. But if you're going in the first 3 picks and you draft Bronny, it's obvious why you drafted him to get LeBron.
Who cares?
You
Who
can't
cares?
say that. You
Because
can't say it.
Washington is the place where legends go to die.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow,
That's
a
where
good point.
Now you have to
legends
get
go to
it
die
right.
in Washington.
One more thing. Jordan went to Washington and he didn't turn around their fortunes much. Imagine Bronny's drafted by Washington, LeBron goes there and they become a title contender. People are going to draw the comparison of Jordan and LeBron, what they each did for Washington.
But they're not going to become a title contender, though. LeBron is in the ideal situation right now. They finally built the team up a little bit, and he gets to take a little bit of a break. I mean, this guy has the most minutes ever, and his body is starting to fail him a little bit. He's doing okay now, but the past few seasons, he's had injuries that have broken down. He's getting old. Father Time wins at some point.
So
So
it's like the equivalent of going to Las Vegas to do a residency when your career is ending, except if you're Usher. So this would be the same thing if LeBron goes to Washington. He may do the exact opposite of ending his career.
Or maybe Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma take their game up a level. Kuzma played with him at LA. Jordan Poole does have a lot of potential.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Jordan Poole doesn't have confidence anymore.
I think listen,
the infamous punch.
I think LeBron plays when LeBron wants to play now.
He
I
left
think
it in
he definitely
Golden State.
will. Yeah, he definitely will. I don't think he even cares about the rules. If he feels tired or he feels like he doesn't want to play or he's got to go somewhere, I think LeBron will pretty much do what he wants to do. So, I mean, what are you going to find a billionaire? Right? What? I don't know. We didn't talk about him, the move he's made off the court either. I mean, he's worth a lot of money right now. He kind of built a business off himself. There are players that have done that. Shaq is a prime example of a guy who's really did his thing. The guy either has people there that are really good around him to invest and to build things, or LeBron is smart in that way too. So, I mean, there's a lot of size of LeBron, father basketball player, and what is he, a billionaire now, I think. So, anyway, very interesting stuff there. Some more Philadelphia 76er news. Allen Iverson is going to get a sculpture on Legends Walk, along with Wilt, Dr. J, Moses, and Barkley. I mean, he pretty much took the 76ers, put him on his back, that little guy, and went to the championship, Pat.
Yeah, I think it's long overdue. Obviously, they're putting it on Legends Walkway rather than in front of where it should be, probably the Wells Fargo Center. And I think that's due to the fact that they are still playing this game with trying to build a new arena, and that's where the Legends Walk will go eventually. I don't think that arena is really going to take hold. I think I firmly believe that isn't going to happen there. But I think that they eventually will get an arena built somewhere, and with that arena, that's where that statue will go. But it's beyond time. I mean, let's think about it. He didn't win us a championship, but he was the reason why people went to basketball games in Philly for a long time.
Well, listen, I think they won one game, if I'm not mistaken, in that championship series. I don't know if it was the first game or not, but if I recall,
it was the very first game of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and realistically, they should have won that second game. That referee made a really ridiculous call at the end. I mean, I'm not the only one that says it, so I don't blame the referees. But had they won that game, they may have upset the Lakers.
Yeah, I don't know. Lakers.
They weren't going to beat the Lakers that series, Pax, even if they somehow won the second game. The Lakers so dominated them after the second game. There was no way back for the Sixers. It was great that they did as well as they did, to be competitive, actually win a game and then, come close in another one.
Well, like I said, game
Yeah,
two, had they
thought-
won game two, it might have been a little different. I mean, I'll never forget Shaquille O'Neal was so dominant in that series. You know, I remember Olajuwon putting all his weight on his back. Like it was such an iconic thing where Shaq is backing him down and he's got all his weight on his back and still couldn't stop him. Just could not stop him at all.
Not too many people.
It was unstoppable that series. And then of course Kobe Bryant doing his thing. It really was, you know, it was a good series. Unfortunately, they just didn't have any other scorer except Allen Iverson.
James, let me put you on the spot. Let me put you on the spot.
Fan of Iverson, man. That first game when he stepped over Tyronn Lue after that shot, man, that was just man. I was the only person, because everyone was Laker fans. I was the only person in the room standing up, jumping up and down because I knew they had a shot. I thought they had a shot when they won that game.
Let me put you on the spot. Is Allen Iverson the best small player in NBA history?
You asking me?
Yeah.
How do you define a small player, Mac? I mean,
I'm gonna say he's different because it was hard to compare. I mean, you look at a guy like him, and then look at a guy like Isaiah Thomas. You know, they're two different style players, but they're both great at their height and what they did. I would say I like Isaiah Thomas, huge Isaiah Thomas fan in the Pistons. And especially with the bad boys, they went up against Jordan. They went up against the Lakers. They went up against Boston. They were pretty formidable. But we're talking Allen Iverson, though. He had no help. You had a whole bunch of guys you can name on Detroit that were just like dominant. But there was nobody with 5'3"
Muggsy Bogues. Come on, the best small guy, 5 feet 3 inches tall, inch for inch. I could argue Muggsy Bogues is the greatest player in NBA history. Think of a player that short who could play in the NBA and actually be halfway decent.
Same thing with Spud Webb. Spud Webb was so amazing. Come on. What are we talking about?
We're talking about a great athlete. We're saying 6'1", Jack. I don't know. I think Allen Iverson was around 6 foot. Right?
He was around 6 foot tall. He was probably like 5'10" and a half, and they had him listed as 6'1". So
that is a great argument. Who would you draft if they were each coming out of college and you knew what they're capable of doing? Iverson or Isaiah Thomas? That's a great debate.
Yeah.
I Iverson every day. Iverson every day.
I would go with Isaiah because Isaiah was more of a point guard. He's distributed the ball more than Iverson was. Mainly, I'm going to break you down one-on-one, and I'm going to take it to the hoop and you're not going to stop me. Where Isaiah could turn around and score 40 points from the outside if he really wanted to, but he was mainly a distributor, and that's why I would take Isaiah. That's the only reason.
Same. I would have taken Isaiah as well. I mean, and then the resume in college as well. I mean, what he did in Indiana under Bobby Knight. So I would say, yeah, I would take him. But I mean, if I couldn't get him, I definitely would take an Iverson for sure.
Imagine putting another pure score. Imagine having somebody now like Jimmy Buckets, Jimmy Butler on that team with Allen Iverson. They'd have won the championship. You wouldn't have needed and somebody who could rebound. They got somebody who could rebound. They just did not have that second scorer, and that's all they needed.
Honestly, who's going to stop Shaq? Honestly, I mean, I don't know anybody that could have stopped Shaq.
Well, no, but you needed to be able to compete with them. You needed to be able to compete with them. He couldn't score 50 points a night was the problem because he was getting hacked all the time. Every time he went in, he got crushed. So you needed that second scorer. You needed a second scorer.
I mean, they just had goons on teams just to go out there and foul out and just keep fouling Shaq at one time. I mean, that's how dominant that guy was. I mean, the only guy playing against him because of his athleticism maybe would have been Wilt Chamberlain. Maybe.
No, but I will say this though, Shaq got dominated in the '94 championship by Akeem Olajuwon in Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, he ran him in circles, and they went 4-0. So Olajuwon in his prime was real, and he wasn't He's
Well,
really
he had Shaq's number. They say styles make fights, styles make play against player matchups too. For some reason, Elijah Wan could always play well against Shaq. Something
Well,
about
what Elijah Wan did, if I remember right, is he brought Shaq out to him. He didn't challenge Shaq out inside. He said, "Come out and play me out here," and he tore him up. And that's what I remember from that series. That's why
he was only like a 6'9", 6'10" guy. He wasn't that big, but he had long arms. He had moves. This guy's moves was ridiculous.
I think he was a little taller than that, James.
I thought he was 7 foot. I thought he was 7 foot tall, but
look it up, and he's like 6'10". I'm telling you.
I don't know about that. But anyway, two great centers squared off, which was what makes it so great. Let's talk a little bit about the Knicks, Pag's favorite subject. The Knicks banged up so much. They got Jacob Toppin and Daquan Jeffries going down to get some time so they can bring them back up. I mean, it's just out of control there right now. The only thing they can hope for is maybe get the play in. Good thing they got Hartstein, their center there, who's kind of the man in the middle for them till the other players get back. But Jack, me and you I know you're a Nets fan, but you follow Knicks as much as I do. I mean, right now they'll be lucky to get him playing.
They're bringing Shake Milton in.
Yeah, Julius Randle was much maligned, but now we see how valuable he is to the Knicks with him out. I mean, the Knicks just aren't the same.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And when they were here, they were saying they were giving MVP chance to Brunson. Is he worthy of that chant?
The MVP is so tough because there's so many different MVPs for teams, right? I mean, Brunson, he's hurt now, so that's sort of like what happened with Embiid. Embiid was challenging for but then he got hurt. He's not playing. It's the same thing with Brunson right now. I guess without Brunson, the Knicks wouldn't be the Knicks till he came there. The Knicks were just kind of the eighth best team in the East. Now he's kind of raised their level. Him and Randall together. So until the Knicks get healthy, I there's a chance they may not even make the playoffs this year. And everybody was really thinking maybe they were the.
They won't make the playoffs. They'd have to really slip to be in the play-in.
Yeah.
How interesting would that be if you wind up having the 7th and 8th seed be the Knicks and the Sixers?
That would be crazy.
And that's a very possible situation. And everybody starts to get healthy right around the playoffs. You could see some upsets from a 1 and a 2 seed. Especially in a 5-game series, it's a little funnier. First off, I think Cleveland is frauds. So I think that if the Knicks wind up getting Cleveland or the Sixers get Cleveland, they're going to win that series. Cleveland, I don't believe is really got it
in the playoffs.
So, but I think that the Celtics do not want to face either one of those teams in a 5-game series.
Not right off. No, not right off the bat. I don't think they do either, Pat. I don't think they do either.
I think that could be a very interesting dilemma.
They're expecting New York to get better if they are able to secure Shake Milton. He's waiting to clear some waivers with Detroit right now, but that would definitely add some depth to their chart.
Yeah.
Going in, what did he do with Detroit?
Points per game when he was with the Pistons. So if he's able to clear.
Jack didn't let you speak your thing. Go ahead, Sonja, because I couldn't hear what you were saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that the Knicks are in the process of trying to get Shake Milton from the Pistons. And if they add him, that could definitely help them with their depth chart. He averaged about 4.9 points per game with the Pistons, and the Pistons have agreed to a contract buyout. So they're waiting to clear some waivers, and they're looking the team as a whole is saying they're looking pretty optimistic if they are in fact able to add him, but we'll see.
Shake is very, very streaky. He'll have one game that he can hit like 16 points, and then the rest game, like the next 7 games, he'll barely get a point. So, and I've seen Shake Milton firsthand for a long time. He's an okay player, but he's definitely like a 9th player on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as Sonja said, this is a depth thing. I mean, I think once everybody comes back, players like Shake Milton and that will either be sent down or will be let go of. I mean, this is just patchwork right now, hoping that the Knicks can stay relevant until the playoffs. So I mean, they're trying everything. That GM there, the Knicks, or the director of player personnel, he's doing a heck of a job just keeping them afloat. Made some great deals, invested in some good things, players, and right now he's just kind of in emergency mode, just pressing any buttons he can to keep them afloat right now. And and the 76ers have done a great job with Embiid gone. If you think about it, you've lost the MVP, and you've got players that have really stepped up, Maxey and a couple others that really have kept the 76ers right there competing. So I think so, Pat.
No, we haven't. But we're 4-10 or 5-10 since he's gone. So it's like they've not really been able to compete. The defense portion of the Sixers has really failed. And that's the hard part with this, is that when you not only lost your top scorer, but you probably lost your top defender too. And that's the biggest problem with the Sixers right now. They got to be able to remain in that top 10 area, or else, like I said, if they were to fall to number 11 by chance, I don't know that he'd be back in enough time for them to win those games to get back in the mix.
Yeah, it's definitely management is all they're trying to do right now, keep the teams afloat. James, I don't know if you're a New Orleans Pelican fan or not. Zion had a lot of problems staying healthy. This year, he's managed to stay healthy, and the Pelicans, for the most part, are really doing their thing in the West right now.
Yeah, I'm to some degree a fan. I'm a huge LeBron fan, as we alluded to earlier. But yeah, I'm being from New Orleans. I am a fan. I just don't follow them as much as I used to. But in regards to Zion, I think the biggest thing is he's just trying to manage his weight. The main thing is just keeping his weight down. He still looks to be the same, to be honest with you, as he was when he first came into this season. Still looks sort of out of shape, but he still has a lot of athleticism. And so I think that's what keeps him, keeping his weight down is what keeps him in the game. And then you just have a lot of other players there on that team that are just like pretty above average. Brandon, what's the guy that came out of Portland? What's the guard's name? I can't even think of him.
I can't think of his name either.
Not sure.
Begins with a C. He played alongside of. I'm sorry, I just can't think of the guy's name. But anyway, he's the leader of the team pretty much, and he keeps them in line. But I'll be interested to see what they do in the West. I don't think they're going to be a match for the top teams. We're talking about the Nuggets, and we're talking about I wouldn't say the Suns ahead of the Clippers. The Clippers, the Nuggets, and then the Suns. Those are top three for me in the West. But they'll be formidable in the first or second round, whoever they play.
I agree with that. I think maybe Minnesota and Memphis are teams that have to be watched too, as they're young teams and they're hungry, and they're a lot younger than some of those teams out there right now than the Lakers and so on. I really, and the Warriors. I think
those are in the factor.
Well, I mean, if they get in, Jack, if they get in, they got a good as chance as anybody just because of their youth alone. I mean, I know they're not as good as they were over the past couple of years. I understand that, but they're still a formidable team if they get in the playoffs, just of their youth alone. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think the West is wide open. I think the East right now belongs to the Celtics. The Celtics are saying they're even trying to figure out ways to avoid boredom. I mean, that's kind of calling out the other East teams, saying something like that. But, they got three legitimate stars on that team and a bench that's unbelievable. I don't think anybody. I don't care.
You talk about teams missing players, like I mentioned, Randall being missed by the Knicks. Middleton for the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, that's their third wheel. They got Damian Lillard. They paired him with Giannis. That's as good a 1-2 punch as you're going to have in the NBA. But missing that third wheel has really hurt them. So getting Middleton back is of extreme importance for the Bucks.
Hey, and say what you want about Doc Rivers, but they got the Bucks playing defense and they're winning again. I mean, does that change anybody's opinion of Doc Rivers? I mean, the Bucks are legitimate championship contender, and now instead of just offense, they're playing defense. Does Doc Rivers change your mind? Any of you guys right now? I mean, they're playing very well.
When last I looked, this was a few days ago, they were like something like 3-8 on the Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
So I don't know about winning again. Maybe they've won a couple of games since then. I forgot.
Yeah.
But come on, I don't want to hear about the virtues of Doc Rivers. It's enough we have to hear Pax praise Doc Rivers all the time. I don't need to hear you do it as well, Matt.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Because I love Doc Rivers. Doc is my favorite guy.
I wasn't a huge fan of them firing the coach when they were second in the East. That wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But James, it's the players. You look towards the players. If they're really upset, that's revealing. And the players on the Bucks weren't that upset. Same way I was telling Sonja in another show with Steve Wilkes, the 49er defensive coordinator. Of course, the players are going to say, "Oh, he did a good job. We hate to see him go." But there's a difference between being truly upset and just saying what's politically correct. Because everyone's going to say what's politically correct. There wasn't an uproar about it.
That's very true. Very true. So coming to the end of the show, thank you, James, for coming in. Maybe we'll have you on. I mean, until our superstar back, we might have you on every Sunday. Not that you're not our superstar, James. I'm just, we're talking about 2-time Super Bowl champion. So if he comes back, maybe we'll have to let you go or bring you in as a guest on Sundays, which, you got tremendous knowledge. Love having you in today. Thanks to Keith Engle. Of course, thanks to Pags, bringing us a little bit of excitement and Philly news as we always have every Sunday. Folks, stick with Roku. A lot of shows still coming up, especially tonight. New sports all day, every day. That's our Roku channel. And stay with us. Everybody have a great Sunday. Say your prayers and go to church, please. All right? Have a great